Hello and welcome, Victor Dantas here. This is lesson 2 of the Zero to Hero Dataverse Quest program. We are taking a deep dive into Dataverse, looking at it from various angles. And this is the second lesson. I am having to actually re-record it. We did the original one with a bunch of people in the call, and I am by myself here. We had to re-record. We had trouble with Teams the day that we host this lesson, so I'm doing it all over again. But I promise I will add a little bit more content to the lesson. So let me start by sharing my screen. Okay, in this lesson two, what we're gonna be looking at is essentially a little bit of tips and tricks on the overall creation of a model-driven app, as well as looking at data types within Dataverse. We're going to look at form design strategies. And if time allows, we're going to be looking at the excuse me, um, model-driven app command, custom commands or custom buttons or ribbon buttons if you come from the old development group, if you will. So without further ado, let's take a deep dive into table creation and then field data types, So in order to create a table in Dataverse, the first thing you need to do, of course, is access your make.powerapps.com site. Then you have to navigate to the environment that you are changing. You can make changes to existing tables if you go directly to the Dataverse area. You can also make those changes by using solutions. And I strongly advise you to look at solutions. Lesson 3, if I'm not mistaken, and 4 will talk about solutions in depth. But think about solutions as containers for your customization. So anytime that you want to move a customization from one environment to another, you have all prepackaged on a solution, and then you can move it accordingly. So I have a solution called Zero to Hero Training, and in this solution, I have a few entities. I created an entity called sample table. All right. And this is for this particular lesson. And we're going to take a look at data types in two ways, two fashions. We're going to look at how to create a specific type. And then we're going to look at how this particular type is displayed on the front end, on the app itself. So I'm gonna open an app that I created before. Let me play that app. So it's running here, and I'm gonna look at the particular table that I have surfacing on that app. So if I go back to the app, you see that there's a single table in my model-driven app, and I have my app here. Okay, so let's take a look at data types. When I click to add a column, you get this wizard. I'm gonna give a name, demo field. Reason why I'm giving a name here is because I'm gonna toggle or navigate through all the types, and I don't want to have the wizard just telling me that this particular field is required. So I'm just giving a name to it. So the first type we have here is a text. Text type, if you come from the SQL Server database side of things, a text type will translate to a bar chart in the backend. All right. And the text type can be up to 4,000 characters, and you are allowed to make those changes here, okay? If you wanna increase the length of your field. So let's go back to the form and look at what a text field looks like. So this is a text field, and this particular text field, I think it's using 100 characters. So at some point, it will stop allowing new characters, as you can see. So Dataverse will already control that for you. You don't have to write any code for it. So back to the backend. The next field that we we'll look at is a text area. So a text and a text area are similar in terms of storage, but presentation-wise, they are different. If you look at the form here, I have changed the number of lines on this control to be, I think it's 2 or 3, 3 lines. So even though capacity may still be restricted to 100, um, I can use 3 lines and display my information more concise. And the 3 lines here is just display. I can still go to another line if capacity of the field allows me to, as you can see here. But the default size is 3 lines. I can only read 3 lines at a time. So the next field we have is email. Email, in terms of storage, is still a varchar field in the back end, but Dataverse will validate my input to make sure that I'm typing an email. So if I say test.victor.com, it will complain that this is not a valid email address. So I can go back here, put an at, and now it's a valid one. So it's just kind of somewhat of a input validation more than anything else. But the data back in the back end is still a varchar. So next field we got is a URL. So for URL, I can type .com, and again, it kind of formatted my URL thinking that this is valid, but it is not valid. I can try to type an email, victor.com, and it will just convert the text and add secure HTTPS to the beginning of the URL. Cool thing is that this controls, if I have one true URL here, I can click on the symbol and it will take me to that particular website, which I think it's pretty cool. If I click on the email one, it will ask me what is, if I don't have a default email provider here or application field, it will ask me how it should proceed. If I have one, it will just pop open and I can write an email using that particular ID for this. Ticker symbol is symbols for stocks. So if I type MST, come on. Now I have a symbol here and I can click it and it will take me to Microsoft stock so I can have a look at it. And again, it is this next option. All right. After that, we have phone number. So phone number, again, it will respect the various phone numbers that we have in the globe, but it's still going to give me an option to dial to a particular number if I have Skype or any other software that allows me to do that. So I don't have any particular app, so that's why it is complaining. The cool thing is, I don't know if you notice, I click on the phone number icon, it opened the selector for an application for VoIP. If you have one in your computer, it will do that. But it also creates an activity, a phone call activity for me to log the phone call, which is pretty cool. So discard that. Let's go back to my form. All right. So the next one here in my form is a multi-text. Oh, sorry. It is a auto number. So an auto number will assist you to create a auto number as it suggests, but you can add a particular format to your auto number field. So in my first example, the auto number is pointing to a string prefix number. So I can add a prefix. Let's say that the prefix for me is case. I scroll down and now I have case, and then the sequence starting with the seed value that I predefined. So if I say that the excuse me, the seed value for my sequence is 1, then you see that it changes the value here in the preview. I can also determine the number of digits. I can say 6, and you have 6 there, so you're good to go. Or I can use a different type of auto number format. So I can do date based, okay? And there are some options for date, okay? Or I can choose custom and then play with the format. You see that there is a little bit of notation here on how I can define my sequence. I can remove, if I want to, suppose that I want to do year dash sequence, okay? I can remove the date and month, and now I have year dash sequence. I can still do prefix if I so desire. So I have case, year, sequence. So pretty cool. This particular setup can still be changed using code using the SDK. I can throw a link to the post so you can follow that. But there is a little bit of the documentation on how you can play with auto number. Let's see if this link shows the code. Yeah. So yeah, so you can still do a little bit more work if you know the code and how to execute it using the SDK for that. Okay. So links here, I'll put it on the comments area for you to refer to. So this is what I got here, this auto number. Now I opened an existing record. So let me save or ask for new. I'm gonna put just some information here and save. And you see that the auto number will show up after. So this operation takes place after you save the record. You won't be able to secure a number while the user is creating the record, just so you know. And for my example, it would make sense to make this field read-only on the form so that users cannot change that number, all right? In a real-life example. All right. So next, what we got? We got multi-text. Okay, you notice that if you're creating a field, multi-text, multi-line text, sorry, is not shown together with text. It's considered to be a special field, okay? Kind of, in my mind, it doesn't make sense UI-wise. I would rather have this field up. The same for number fields. I would rather have decimal and floating point number back up together with numbers, maybe relabel the section to numbers, but there is only so much we can ask of Microsoft, I suppose. But hopefully, it will be aggregated together later on. But let's look at multi-text. So multi-line text, it kind of works in the same fashion as a text area. The difference here is that there is the size limit for multi-text is a lot greater than the text area. Text area, again, it's up to 4,000 characters, whereas the multi-line, it's over a million. Let's see precisely what the number is, but it's over just a few characters over a million. Yeah, so it's 1,048,000, roughly 49,000 characters. All right. This one is heavily used in model-driven apps, especially for rich text content, where you have a little bit more formatting. So you can use that. You can also, in this scenario, you can even add an image to your control. Okay. So I'm gonna look for an image here. Let's see if I have one. Okay, there's one here. Okay, so my image is now on my text, and I think this particular control is converting the image to base64 string, so it would still store your information on a text field as a text value. So that's pretty cool in my opinion. All right. So next we're gonna jump into numbers. Okay, numbers, they provide a lot of features, and you really need to know how to best use it so that you can make good decision when you decide to use numbers. All right. Sorry, I'm showing the wrong screen here. Sorry about that. Let's go back here. Did I lose my screen? What happened? Hold on just 1 second. I think I am showing the wrong screen. Apologies there. This is Is this the right one? Oh man, I might have closed it. Oh yeah, so this one. Sorry, apologies there. Okay, and so it's important to know the details about data fields, because once you create a column, you cannot change its type. You can change some of the information after you create, but you cannot change the type of the column. So it's important to kind of decide it or know what each type provides ahead of time. So for numbers, we have handful of types. So we're gonna click here. You have whole number, duration, time zone, and language. You may ask, hold on, how come I have duration, time zone, and language? We'll look into that. You see, duration, um, time zone, and language, they don't really imply that you're dealing with numbers, but what's happening here is that there are option sets or choices in the backend for these data types, and dynamic and Dataverse is storing those types as number in the backend. All right. So for whole number, um, you can define the range of the number. If you're dealing with only positive numbers, of course, you're gonna say minimum 0, and then maximum you can set up to whatever maximum you're working with. Um, but you can go negative with whole number. One of the things that I designed Microsoft had talked through was the display mask for numbers. A lot of times I want to use a whole number for year, but it will automatically include a comma here for thousand. So it kind of, my customers, they really complain about it. They said, I don't like the 2022 is 2 comma 0 22, right? But for all other purposes, whole number will do the job for you. All right. So let's look at the next one. The next one is duration. Okay. So duration will render information in this fashion. It will show you a drop down. So if you want to log, so 1 minute, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and whatnot, but it will store the information as an integer in the backend. So it's good for you to know what you use for your own purposes. And the backend type for duration, again, it's integer type. So whole numbers, every time you select either a duration, language, or time zone, you're gonna get an integer in the backend. Okay. So let's look at language. So you have a list of languages. For me, I only have English. If I had more languages in this setup, I would see the other ones here. But what is being stored is a language code. I think English United States is 1033. Canadian, if I'm not mistaken, it's 1052, so on and so forth. And the same for time zone. So the time zone, it will store an integer with the offset of the time zone in regards to GMT. So that's how these number fields are storing information. All right. So from more of the simple ones, we're gonna dive into the specific ones, or more number formats that deal with numbers that have precision. Okay, decimal number and floating point number. So in the UI, when you look at it, you see that those two types are down here. Again, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me as to why, but it is here. And you'll notice that by selecting a decimal number, the range is a lot bigger than what we saw for whole number. And reason being is because decimal in the backend, or the decimal type, is using a native type decimal type. So there is more range for the decimal type. Additionally, you can play with decimal places. All right. So you can choose how many decimal places you want to include to your number, up to 10 decimal places. All right. And also you can design the range of the decimal places that you are using. All right. Um, Then let's go to floating point number. All right, for this guy, you see that I don't have a range that allows me to go negative by default. Actually, I can, but it doesn't show that in the UI when we type, okay? And for decimal places, the precision is a lot lower than a decimal type. In essence, if you coded with .NET in the past, the data type for storage on floating number is sorry is a double type as opposed to decimal types, which is uses in C sharp uses the base type decimal. All right. And if you're dealing with calculation, and if you are creating a solution that really needs to show precise numbers, especially when you're doing aggregation, averages, and whatnot, I'd say use the decimal type because decimal will keep the precision, whereas floating point number will round numbers, even if you, I mean, also, but it will round with but also respect the precision that you define. So if the precision is 5, okay, and you use up to 5, and the number is at a situation that it requires rounding, it will round in that fifth position, okay, whereas decimal will be more precise, okay. So that is that for numbers. I don't want to close this panel. Let's see what we got here in my sample form. We have date fields next. Date fields are of two types: date time, which of course includes time, or date only. Now, there are behaviors, excuse me, that are peculiar to date fields, be it date time or date only, and we'll look into that now. So if I want to create a date time field, that is how you create a date time, and this is how it is presented. So I can select the date, and I can go here and click to select the time. Fairly easy. If I want a date only, I can select date only, and it will look like this. All right. Um, Now onto the behavior area. Okay. If you're dealing with either date time or dates only, you still have this section here for behavior where you can select whether this date is to be presented to the user in their time zone, or if this is time zone independent. You know, Dataverse will store dates in GMT. So if I am in the United States or Canada Mountain Time Zone, I will select my date, and Dataverse will translate my date to GMT and present to me in my time zone. If there are other users in the same instance, say in Europe, they will look at that date and they will see the time, date and time in their time zone. Okay, but if depending on the requirements for my application, I collect a date and that date needs to be displayed the same for all the users regardless of the time zone, this is the behavior type that we select, time zone independent, okay? So very important for you to catch that. Okay, next. So the next thing we got here is um, the other field types. In here we got choices, which is a pick list value, where I can select choices, which is fed from a pick list value, but allows me to select multiple options, and a yes no field, which is stored as a Boolean. So let's go to the backend and inspect those. If I select a choice, I have an option to then select the pick list that provides the options for my control. So in here you have a set of values. I created one that I called choice, and you'll notice that I can click edit choices, and then it will show my options here if I wanted to add more. Okay. But that's how you create a choice data type. Legacy name for this component is called option set. If I select choices, then I can select again, the pick list that will feed my component here. I can edit to add more options. Of course, if I add any options in this uh, window here, it will add that option to any other field that is using this pick list as basis for their display. Okay, which is, for me, is pretty cool. All right, and then let's go to the yes no field. So the yes no field is Boolean, but you can still control the label. So you can say it's true. When it's true, say yes. When it's no, it's false, or whatever text you decide to use there. It's your choice. Okay, so let's go back to the screen. Then let's look at relational types. So there are three types of relational field types. You have customer, currency, and lookup. So customer is a reference field that allows you to set it to either an account record or a contact record. All right. So you can click and say, okay, I have one account record. I'm going to use this account record here. The same fashion, if I had contacts, I could select a contact from my drop down and it would still work. This field is heavily used in sales Dynamics 365 for sales, for opportunities, sales order, invoices. They use this field type. Okay. The next one is currency. So currency, I think I created as a text field. Pardon my mistake there. But currency points to a table in Dataverse called currencies, the display name, but the internal name is called transaction currency. And there is already a list pre-populated for you there that you can use, but it works as a lookup as well. And then the third field is a lookup, which is a reference to another table. And in this scenario, you can create this reference to any table in your environment. So let's go back to the designer and see how those are created. So in here, I can scroll down and say, I want a customer field. Let's look at the options. These are the name of the internal relationships that are being created when we create the field. If I want to create a currency field, not very many options. Oh no, I'm so sorry, I made a mistake. The currency here is a value, like a dollar amount. And when we create this particular field, um, we end up with two fields in the back end. I'm so sorry for my apologies there. I got confused, and I'll show you why there was confusion there. When you create a currency field, it will create the field that you gave name to. I'm actually going to step out of this wizard just to show the field that you gave name to. Okay. And then another one that's called base. And this is Dataverse's way of allowing us to use multi-currency, use currency rates and all that in an implementation. So this currency base is created automatically. So when the users enter the currency or the value, this particular product costs $10,000. It will, if you have multi-currency set up, it will convert it to the base currency in your database. Okay. The other field I was referring to is a native field called currency as well. So this one I created, and again, apologies there. This one was created natively to indicate what currency am I dealing with when I work on this record. And this goes well for product catalogs and whatnot if you create your own, of course. But what it does is I can say, okay, this product costs 10,000 Canadian dollars. And if I have multi-currency and the base currency is US, it will convert the currency or the value of my product in this base field. So please forgive me there. My mistake. Don't ever use native field name on your demos. Sorry, I'm so sorry. All right. The third one and most important, in my opinion, is the lookup field. Now, the lookup field, it will allow you to create a relationship to any table that you have in Dataverse. Again, the UI is not super nice because I have to scroll down to find the reference table here, but it's okay. So let's say that I want to create a lookup that goes to contact. If I go to advanced options, it will give me the internal name of the relationship. And now I have created a one-to-many relationship to this table. All right. And that's how lookups work. If I go back to my form, I can click on my lookup. And in my sample, I had created a lookup to accounts. So now I can see the account. All right. Very similar to the top one, but this is somewhat polymorphic, if you will, because it allows me to select records from either account or contact table. This one, I created a lookup, a field of type lookup that's pointed to account. So there's no way I can select a contact for this result. Okay. Finally, uh, there are two field types that pertain to files. One is called the file field type, where I can select files and add to my record. And there is an image type, which works better for image. You notice that in my file example, I selected an image. It could be any file, but the image type will limit the upload to an image and will create a thumbnail in my um, in my record. Okay, so I can save this guy, and if I refresh it, you see that it's taking a while to load my image. It finally did, but if this is the first image field that I created for my record, it will use this image as the record image as well. So in my opinion, that's a pretty cool feature. So that's it for field types. The one thing that I want to show you next is a something that I use quite often on my forms. A lot of times, customers will complain that, I love Dynamics, I love how flexible it is to create fields. I like it that you can create an app pretty quick, but when it comes to manipulating data, I have to go to this form to do this, then I have to go to another form to do that. I have to change an information this way and then have to go that way. So people really complain about, the navigation quite a bit. So one of the things that's kind of I shouldn't say it's a hidden gem, but it's not used as much as it should. It's something called form component control, and what it is you can on your form in a model-driven app you can instantiate a form from an entity that is related to your entity. So I'll show you the end result, then I'll show you how you get it done. So here's the end result. I have this lookup that points to account. Suppose that I wanted to empower my users to make changes to the account, but instead of going to the record, I wanted them to be allowed to make changes here. So I created a tab in my form, and in that tab, I put a form component control. And I mean, you can tell that this is not information from my sample table. This is information from the accounts that's related to my sample table record. So I can make changes to this, save. If I go back here and refresh my screen, you see that the change took place on the record as well. So pretty cool, in my opinion. And this form is fully functional. I can add related records. Now we're talking about third level relationship. I have my sample table, I have accounts related to it, then I have contacts associated to it that I could use it. And then even going further, you can have a document tab on your form, show documents from SharePoint, and people would be able to click and view the documents, open, edit. So there is no limit. And if you're brave enough, you keep on building. Let's say that you have a primary contact. You put a form component here for that primary contact, and then you'd show components here that you could use to manipulate your contacts if you so desire to do it. So you can have a full-fledged form with information that is related, and that you would allow your users to make changes to it. So fairly quickly here, I'm gonna go to the backend, and you can only manipulate the form components in the classic UI. Soon, I believe we're gonna be able to do it on the new UI. Okay, so what you need to do is my form is displaying another form from the account table. So the one thing that you need is to find the ID of this form. Okay, so how do I find that? I go to the account table, then I go to forms, then I can click on account, on this account form, and on the URL after this added forward slash, you can copy this GUID, and that is the ID of your form. So I'll copy that guy while this still loads, okay? Then again, I need to go to the form that's gonna host the related record form. So I go to sample table, come on. Okay, I open my main form. Then I go to the second tab in my scenario, of course. Then in here, though, I need to add a lookup field, and it needs to be the lookup field to the related information. Okay, so this is my lookup to the account table. I can then click to change properties. Then I go to controls. Then you're gonna click to add controls, and you're gonna select form component control. All right. Once it's added, you can select, okay, I want to display this form component control on the web, on phone, and tablet. All right. Then you select this line. This is automatically populated, the first option. The second one, it is an XML notation, and I'm gonna copy that and put it on the text field here for us to inspect what's going on. Okay. So here's the notation. You have a node for quick forms. Then you have a node for quick forms ID. Right. And that is what it looks like. Now you're gonna give the entity name. Again, this is the name of the entity that you're referring to. In this case, it's account. And this is the ID of the form. All right. Boom. That is it. You're done. You can copy this guy, throw it in here, hit OK, OK, publish your form, and you are ready to go. Now, if you want to make all fields read-only, if you just want to show a full set of the information but not allow the users to change it from that particular entry point, you can do that. You just have to create a form that's full read-only, or if you code, you can do a JavaScript that loops through all fields and make all fields read-only as well. But it all depends on your requirement. All right. So last thing before we go is this. I want to show you that you can add buttons, custom buttons to your form. It used to be fairly hard to do that. You had to resort to JavaScript in additional components to customize the ribbon. Now it's fairly easy to do that. So what I have here is I have this model-driven app, which has one table. I'm gonna go to the back end, go to the app, then I'm going to click here. If I click edit, this is gonna take me to the legacy editor. I don't want that. I'm gonna click edit in preview. All right. Then I go to the specific table I'm dealing with, click there. Then I click the three dots here, edit command bar. Then I go to main form. That's the one I want to change. The four options here are essentially, this is the main form. This is the main grid, okay? And if my simple tables is related to a parent record, that's the subgrid. So that's why it's showing three options, or four, associated view as well. But we're gonna play with the main form, okay? I can click edit. Okay, and in here, I can say, okay, let's add a button here. So I click new command. I have the option to select either to use PowerFX or JavaScript. Okay. I'm going to use PowerFX, and that's the language used in Canvas apps and the language that Microsoft is pushing for low code and no code. So the example I'm going to show you is simply change. It's when you click on the button, it will simply change the status of the record. Okay. But if you want to study PowerFX, you have ability to do quite a bit more moving forward. So the button label is inactivate. I know that there is already a button that does it, but I wanted to show you how you could do it, how you can customize yours. So inactivate, I can use an icon from the library. So let's see what looks similar to that. Let's do this. X, all right, I can put a tooltip description, accessibility tags. I can do all sorts of things. Now, the two areas that are really important for us to understand is action and visibility. As the name explains, what action you wanted to perform when the button is clicked, okay? And visibility is if you want to condition the display of the button based on a formula, all right? So you can say if the status of my field is of my record is active, then show the inactivate button. Okay, so you can do that. I'm not going to mess with the visibility right now. I just want to worry about the action. Okay, so I'm gonna click to open formula bar, and my formula will be I wanted to patch or update my record. So that is the name of the table automatically displayed. Okay, the record is self dot selected dot item. That represents the record that I am dealing with at the moment. And this is how, what fields I want to patch it. Okay. So I want to patch the status field, and the status that I wanted to use is status I want to use is inactive. Okay. And then I can do comma and do another field. Status reason, again, field status reason. Okay. I can then close my curly brackets, right? And then I do semicolon. All right. And that should do it. Am I missing anything? I think I'm missing a parenthesis. Sorry. Save and publish. Okay, let's give it some time to publish. All right, let's go back to the model-driven app. Where is that? Open a record. Refresh. Let's see if our button will show up. Sometimes I found myself refreshing it multiple times before I would see my button. It's already here. So I can click. And I didn't add anything to give me a response as to, this function executed, but I can refresh here and hopefully it's done its job. Not. Is it showing as disabled? Let's see if now it has refresh. Come on. Yeah, so it's inactive now. So it just took a while um, to bring the code. So if I go back, there'll be just one active record. I can click here. Let's click on this guy. Again, my error here is that I didn't put like a refresh or notification, but it's that record is inactive. So that is it for today. I hope you like this lesson. Take care and we'll see you soon. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention. When I create this button, it asked me if I wanted to use PowerFX or JavaScript. So you can still do custom JavaScript and tie it to your button. Um, Dana Schneglicar uh, talks about it on lesson 7, JavaScript for Dataverse. And if you want to take a look at it, it's going to be cool. All right. Take care. Bye bye.